Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, welcome into this week's session. I talked with Elyssa Morrill. Elyssa is a local bicycle enthusiast. I met her a few months ago at a local bicycle advocacy meeting. We get into it a little bit in the podcast of how we met and the different things that we're involved in. Last week, she shared her story with our city council along with some other cargo biking moms. My wife was included in that, and it was powerful. All the stories were so powerful. It was amazing to listen to all the cargo bike moms share their experience and why they are choosing to bike over driving their cars and the need for safer infrastructure. And it was heard. Our city council agreed to look at our current bike plan and commit to helping us get safer bike infrastructure. So it was amazing. But there was just something about Alyssa's story that stuck out to me as she talked about how biking really has improved her mental health and just her desire to connect more with the community, which I'm all about. And so I wanted to have a little bit more in-depth conversation and share that with everyone listening because it's powerful. So as you listen to this week's session, again, kind of think about how you would like to apply some of those principles and also who you'd like to share it with and how it can help them too. So enjoy this week's session with Elyssa. All right, Elyssa, thanks so much again for joining me on the podcast. If you could just introduce yourself, where you're from, who you are, what you do, a little bit about your family, just all those good things.
Okay, thanks for inviting me. This is fun. My name's Alyssa. I was born in Texas. I grew up mostly in Ohio though, and now I live in Orem. And I am married to Nick, who is wonderful, and we have 5 kids, age 1 to 11. And right now I am staying at home with the kids and getting my master's in uh, community and organizational leadership is what the program's called. So that's been fun. And uh, I'm I don't know, there's a whole lot more to tell that's relevant here, but
Yeah, well,
I like to do music. I like to be in the community.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Tell me a little bit about your music stuff.
Um, uh, well, I like to sing. We have a folk choir that I like to sing in here. That's a lot of fun, and I like to write music with the piano and sing, and it's, helps me get my feelings out. But that's been fun.
Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, and so how did you get into biking? Was it something that you just always did as a kid? Was it something that, later on in life? Yeah, how did you get into it?
So my family, we would do Sunday bike rides and that kind of thing. I grew up in a rural area, so it actually wasn't great for biking on the road, but we would load up our bikes and go to the bike path. Um, and that was a fun thing we did as a family growing up. But it was always recreational. And I got really into biking myself again recreationally my senior year of high school. I got a bike that I'd been using the same bike since second grade. And
Wow.
I asked my parents, "Can I get a bike for my birthday?" And they said, "You never ride your bike." I said, "Well, yeah, it doesn't fit me anymore." But I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety, and I got that bike and started riding every day when I'd get home from school just by myself. I'd go and ride. Totally unsafe now looking back. It was very hilly and no shoulder on the road, and I didn't wear a helmet. But being able to not go up any hills at first and be exhausted, but just slowly every day. I'd just go ride for like an hour before I started my homework and playing with friends or whatever. I I would go do that, and watching myself get physically stronger was really beneficial for my mental health. And it wasn't something I really thought about, and I just did it and really, really loved it. I grew to really love my bike, and I would go with a friend or two. Sometimes we'd go on long bike rides, and it was just a really special part of like my last year at home. And then I came out to school in Utah and very quickly stopped biking at all because I was like, this is insane here in the big city of Provo. Um, and so my bike just kind of sat there and I didn't really use it. And then I got married and then we moved all over the place and then we had kids and I didn't feel like I was a strong enough biker to put my kids in the trailer. So I would only ever bike when my husband was around to put the kids in the trailer and I'd bike along on the bike path. And that's kind of what we did. So the biking was pretty rare for us until um I think it was 4 years ago. At the time, my sister and her family lived in Provo, and she started talking about getting a Madsen bike, and I hadn't heard of it. And she would talk about it, and I looked it up. I was like, "You're gonna spend how much on a bike?" Like I couldn't even wrap my brain around thinking about spending that much money on a bike.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, "Okay, you're crazy. I mean, that would be really cool, but you're crazy." And she thought about it for about a year. She got a trailer. She was biking all over the place. She'd bike from Provo up to South Fork Park in Provo Canyon
Yeah.
with her kids with just her bike to show I'm gonna really use this. So she's crazy. But she showed up to my house one day with her new electric cargo bike. And I looked at her and I saw like the smile on her face, and I just knew everything in me was like, I have to get one of these
Mm.
because at this time I had four little kids. I was home. I was not working. I wasn't in school. I was kind of feeling a feeling that I think a lot of young moms feel of isolation and again, like depression, anxiety, those are things that have been part of my life for most of my life. But in that situation, it's pretty strong. And I think a lot of moms can identify with that feeling. Um, and when I saw the look on her face of like, I just biked to your house from Provo and it just felt good. Um, Something in me just knew like I have to figure out how to make this work for me. So so I immediately started scouring every used
Yeah.
venue I could find, and I ended up finding an extra cycle on eBay in Florida.
Wow.
And I took a chance on it because I had started asking all kinds of strangers through my sister if I could borrow their bikes, and I knew this is the one I want. And so that's how I started. I hadn't biked at all practically for 10 years almost. And I was really, really nervous to bike on the road, but having that motor and having my kids up there with me instead of back on a trailer. I was just way too nervous of a person in general, but also as a biker to ever do that. And so it took me a while. It took me, a week or two before didn't feel like we were going to die every time we got on it. And then from there, that's how I got into it. That was the question, right?
Yes. No, that's beautiful. Story. So it was your sister then that
Mm-hmm.
rode her Matson bike all the way to your house, and then you just saw like
I
the
just
joy.
saw, yeah, in her because, I think she also felt a lot of the things I felt. She has little kids, and you sometimes can feel a little bit stuck. And I just could see that I'll fall away from her in that one ride. I don't know how to describe it, but everyone I've talked to who gets a cargo bike
Yeah.
uh, seems to understand what I'm saying.
No, absolutely.
Because it's very
Absolutely.
magical to have that freedom to be like, I can go on the road and I can go it to the stoplight and not feel nervous about not being able to start fast enough for the cars to, you know, it just changes things and being out there. Uh, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but it radically altered my life for sure.
Yeah, and like I'm assuming, right? So you get this bike, you got four little kids, you got five kids now.
Hmm.
Um, Talk to me about like the difference that that made, just for, because that 10 years that you weren't biking and then all of a sudden you were riding. How did that help with that isolation, with that depression, with that anxiety?
Yeah, well, and so it's funny because now I can articulate what I thought and felt when I saw my sister at my door and saw her kids just grinning in the back of the bike. Because something's different about it. They just love it's so different than getting in the car. You have to run errands. You have to do a lot of mundane errands as a parent. And something about not having to fight the kids to like, yeah, we got to get in the car. We got to go do this. The kids never fight me. They never ever say, let's go get on the bike. In fact, my now 4-year-old all the time will just say to me, I think we need to go get on the bike. Like if we're feeling kind of grouchy or whatever, she's like, let's go for a bike ride. And we will. We'll just bike like even around the block. And everyone feels better because it's just a happy feeling to be biking. And so now I can say, I saw her and I was like, oh, this is going to cure my depression. That's not quite what I thought, and that's not quite what happened. But I just, I could just feel something that it was like, this is calling to me. And so it was really shocking to me actually when I experienced it. First of all, just the pure joy of being able to say, I have an errand that's 3 miles away and I can put my 4 kids on the back and I can go and I can be strong enough and I can have that help that I need to get there in a in an amount of time that's not crazy. And it just feels very empowering. I'm not going to say I'm going there on my own steam because I'm not just on my own steam. I do have a motor.
Right.
But to be able to move your body, it's very hard when you feel depressed to do the things that you know are good for you. But if it's like, well, we have to go do this errand, and so I'm going to get on the bike and I'm going to go, just pumping your legs up and down and feeling like breathing that fresh air. We go and it's even if it's raining, even if it's, you know, not having so many reasons not to move your body. That's a very difficult thing for me personally to do when I'm feeling low. But
Yeah.
when it's just baked into our routine of we have to go places and this is how we go places, um, that alone has been so good for my mental health and for my physical health. Because I have other things that I like to do. I like to do yoga. I like to move my body. I like to go for walks. But having it built into my day several times during the day to just be like, I'm just gonna go for a 15-minute bike ride and back. It feels really good. But the thing that really surprised me was, well, two things. One, the community that is found in commuting biking. I'm sure, I've never been a road biker. I've never been a like an exercise biker. And I know there's a lot of community there, but the amount of community that I've found in biker moms and biker dads who are taking their kids from place to place, um, that's been really cool. And also being out in my community. So, like I said, I live in Orem, and Orem's not a super uh it's not there's not like a city center. There's not a sense of we come together to commune as a community.
Right.
That's a stupid sounding sentence. But there's Provo has a very strong identity. Salt Lake has a very strong identity as a city, and this is what we're about. And Orem, not so much. It's kind of just like houses are here, and this is where people move when your kids get older and you move out of Provo.
Right.
And so I didn't feel any sense whatsoever of connection to the place that I lived. I love the canyon. I adore the mountains, and I love the people you know, that I meet in my different activities that I do. But as far as my city, absolutely did not feel connection to that. It was where my house was. And that all changed when I started biking through my city and started seeing people who were out walking or were out working in the morning, seeing I just radically altered my engagement with the place around me and how I felt about it. And that in turn, I think, has really changed my own internal chemistry, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's probably the best way I can say that.
No, absolutely, and that's one thing that really stuck out to me. So last week, right, when you got up and spoke at city council, along with, my wife was there and she spoke, and other cargo bike moms, and
Hmm.
other just bike commuters, and that was one thing that really stuck out to me, as you talked of, like you just said, I didn't care about Orem until I started biking because I'm going through the streets and I honestly care about being more involved, and so yeah, that process of just being more involved, like, and then, I mean, you're getting your master's in what is it now?
Yeah, it's funny. I can never remember the name of the program, but it's community and organizational leadership.
Yeah, so like, how did biking inspire you to get into that? Like, how does that all connect?
Yeah, it's a really funny thing. I didn't ever higher education was very important to me. I grew up in a family that really highly valued that, and so that was kind of my life. Was obviously I'm going to get a law degree and I'm going to get a PhD, and that I always thought that in high school and in college. And then things shifted for me, and I changed my mind about different things, and that was an important part of my development to learn how to value non-academic credentials and learning. And I thought I'm never going to go back. Um, and that I was happy with that decision. But as I started to feel a lot more sense of self through biking, um, I don't know if that really makes sense, but that's kind of what started to happen as I started to feel more in tune with who I am, um, outside of being a mom. Not outside of being mom, but like the other parts of me had in a lot of ways taken a back seat
Yeah,
as I've been full-time momming. And something about getting physically stronger, getting mentally and emotionally more resilient through the experiences on the bike,
yeah,
I started to realize I miss some parts of myself. And I started to look for programs that would bring in the different things that I was interested in. I was interested in law, I was interested in public policy, I was interested in public health, um, and I I was interested in working with like communities at risk. These were all things that in my undergrad that I was very passionate about. And I thought, is there a program that exists like that? And I looked around kind of casually to be like, well, like it would be interesting. Um, and I was starting to feel a little more confident. That's the number one thing I can really say is like biking for transportation really improved my confidence because you kind of have to put yourself out there. You,
yeah,
you can't really hide behind anything.
right.
And I ended up finding this program that blends all of these things uh, really well. And the cool thing about it is it's a research degree, and so you base all of your coursework on your capstone research project that I'll be doing my final year. And what I've landed on is biking infrastructure and not just infrastructure, but also like how do we improve pedestrian and biking infrastructure to create people-friendly cities? How do we change the way we engage with our built environment instead of saying we have to live a certain way because of how our environment is to then say why don't we make our cities work for the people who live here? Um, and so it's really fun. I never imagined that that would be what I would be spending my time on, but I am obsessed. I really, really love it. And I'm sure it'll shift over and over until I'm actually doing my research, but I've spent a year now doing this and I really love it. I really, for a long time, I was like, this isn't important enough. It's not going to change lives. And then I think, what am I saying? I'm here because of how life-changing it has been to bike. It's totally important enough.
You are the research, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Exactly.
excited to keep keep learning about that because there's so much there about how we decide to engage with our communities and with I don't know all of it. So it's very exciting to me. I feel very grateful to have the resources to be able to do this because I just love being involved with these things.
No, I love it, and that's right. That's how we met. Through
Yeah.
Bike Orem, you had showed up to a bike meeting, and then you had mentioned, "Hey, I want to do a bike bus," and I was like, "Yeah, I do too. Like, let's do this." And then it just so happened that our kids go to the same school, so it's been really fun to kind of coordinate that and stuff with you as well. And the thing that I loved about, um, again, last week at City Council meeting was, even though it's a silly little bike bus, we haven't had we haven't had hundreds turn out like that you see on social media and stuff, but that bike bus was referenced like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times by multiple
Hmm.
people. And even a member of the city council like ran into me at this other event and he asked, "How's your bike train going? How's your," and I was like, "Oh, the bike bus." So it's like it's just putting it out there and getting people involved and encouraging the community. So like being a part of something, and it will grow to some other things. But I think just those little steps, it's been really cool. Those connections that we make. And so yeah, being involved, seeing you being involved and coming out to the meetings and stuff, that's been super cool.
Well, it's been really helpful for me to be able to see more. It's not always about the end result. It's the process like this bike bus. It's so wonderful just even to meet one family, to meet you guys and say, you also care about this and we can do this together. And even if no one else ever did it, for my kids to see this matters to someone else and we're maybe not crazy. That process of just being able to have that camaraderie alone is that's kind of what it's all about, right? Is being able to engage with other human beings and say, yeah, this matters. And it's been really valuable just for that. And I love seeing my kids, my son in particular has he 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 applied for student council and that was his whole thing. He's like, I want to start creating more community in the school and we'll have bike day. I was like, well, I don't know if I should be alarmed or flattered that, that he's adopting my personality right now.
I love it.
But it's very cool to be able to just join with other humans and do something that feels good. And the days, especially where we have, you know, 10 other groups joining us, it just feels very fun to say things can be different.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. So I was so grateful that you started that and that you're keeping it going. And I really do think that as we're consistent, it will become something even
Yeah.
cooler.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting through these cold Utah winter months, but we're
Hmm.
still planning on doing it as much as we
Oh
can, and
yeah.
then hopefully in the spring it'll continue to pick up. But yeah, no, I think it's been really cool to see the connections as well. Like again with you guys and just with other people, and I went on another ride just the other day with some other like college age kids, and one of the college age dudes that rides with us, he had said, he's like, I've been kind of removed from other groups and communities and stuff, and he's like, and he mentioned, he said it's been really cool to see your family and like Alyssa and Nick's family, like to see you guys all riding with your kids, because he's like, that's the kind of thing that like I want to be able to do with my partner in the future. And I was like, yeah, dude, if whatever questions you have, like we're here to kind of, it's not all glamorous all the time. There's times when our kids are freaking out or, super
But
cold
it's
on the back.
mostly glamorous.
Yes, yes. 95% of the time it's amazing. The other times, not so much. But again, it's that community and what just the bike, commuting culture really brings in
Yeah.
that connection. It's really fun.
Well, I've found that everyone I've met, like I said, before I had my bike, I was calling strangers that I got their numbers from other people saying, "Hey, I heard you have this kind of bike. Can I come ride it?" Every single person absolutely come. Everyone's so enthusiastic about it because I think it's a pretty common experience for people to have these strong, positive changes in their lives. And so they're very enthusiastic about sharing that, and I get it now. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yep,
I'll join your cult. Um,
absolutely.
it's it, everyone I've met is just so kind and so fun, and it's just a great way to meet people that are are really community minded and really kind. If nothing else,
Yeah.
that alone has been so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite things is like when we like ride to a park or like to some kind of community event and people come up to us and like, tell me about your bike. I'm like, I will
Hmm.
gladly tell you about my bike, right? Like, I'll show this off. Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I was saying that to Nick the other day. I think I was even saying about you guys after we'd done our last bike bus and just saying I everyone is so great and I love these people, and Nick said, "Well, people who are going to bike are people who are willing to take some time.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to take time sometimes." So I thought that's actually another thing that I feel like I've benefited from because I'm definitely an urgent person.
Mm,
Things get under my skin. It's like right now, and we have to do this, and we have to do, and you have to slow down a little bit with biking. Not very much. Local errands don't take that much longer, but they do take a little bit longer. And it's been helpful for me to not only learn to take time for myself, to set more time for these things and say it's going to take us longer, and that's okay because it's going to be a better time, but also to see in relationships and in life, it's okay to take some time and chill out a little bit.
yeah. No, just there's this guy that I follow on Instagram, and that's his handle is like life at the speed of bike, and I'm like, I love that. That's so
Yes.
just slowing down and just going at that own flow and that own pace. Has Nick always been a biker, avid cyclist, or has he always
Not
been
at
into it?
all. Not at all. He when we were when we'd been married a couple years, his friend from high school invited him to do the Hotter Than Hell in Texas, and he brought him a bike, that bike that he had on that you were saying, the cool
Yeah,
bike,
that's a
that old
sweet
bike
bike.
from the
Yeah.
80s or whatever.
Uh-huh.
His friend brought that with him to the race. So we went down to Dallas and he did a 60-mile race in July or something, um, with no training and, you know, had heat stroke and was very sick.
Oh my goodness.
So he kind of just jumps into things. But he he's just naturally drawn to a lot of things like that. So he still is less of a biker than I am because I have the kids and have to do the errands, and so I have the cargo bike. Um, but he's very supportive and is always. We often go places now as a family, biking and stuff, but it wasn't a huge part of his life. He's always had a bike and
Yeah,
gone around, neighborhood, going to friends' house and stuff. But no, it's a new thing for both of us for sure to be bikers.
that's awesome. Well, you guys are rocking it, and your kids are too. They're strong riders for sure. When they're with us on the bike bus, it's awesome to see them riding. So, but you're doing
Yeah, that's
something good.
definitely that's definitely a shift, I really loved seeing that confidence in my kids too. That's new for them to be strong on the bike, and it just feels good to see growth for all of us, for sure.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely, and for him, I love it that he's run for student body. What is he? Is he the student body president? What is he?
No, no, it's just student council,
A student council? That's
which is
amazing.
well, that's very not. that's out of character in a lot of ways for him. He's definitely a keep to himself and kind of just do what needs to be done and then go do his own thing. So this putting himself out there and wanting to be more involved is very, very different. And so it's fun to see that. It's fun to see. I do attribute a lot of that to being involved in the biking community and being having that shift. So that's been very fun. Not that not that there's one way of being, but I like seeing that confidence coming out.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's been really fun to see that in my son too, that he's, we got him a little bit of a bigger bike, and then all of a sudden he just like
Hmm.
loved it and just was cruising, and was so like independent in his own mind, right? Going everywhere. So it's been really cool to see that flourish.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
um
I think it's important for kids to experience a certain amount of independence and I can do this.
yeah. No, absolutely. And that's, again, that speaks to the need for a good, safe bike infrastructure, right? So then kids are able to do that and not just feel stuck in their own little neighborhood and trapped, but they can ride to school and they can ride to the library and they can ride to the store and do it in a safe manner. So yeah,
Absolutely.
the work and the research and everything that you'll be involved in, it literally is life changing and life saving, right? Not to be dramatic, but
Yes.
it really is. Like
Oh
it's a
yeah.
really cool thing that you're a part of. So
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, lastly, what's if someone is, in your shoes, right, or thinking about getting a cargo bike or anything, what advice, what kind of tips would you give them to like a mom thinking about getting into cargo biking or just biking in general?
For sure. Uh, I would say one, if you're kind of balking at the price of a cargo bike, but you do have the resources, stop doing that and just get one. Like if you're just thinking that's a little much, but you want one and it's just the price that's feeling like that's crazy, absolutely do it and you absolutely will not regret it.
Yep.
That said, it's a lot to get into a new cargo bike. I've never done a new cargo bike. I've done several used ones, so look for used ones if you're wanting that. Now, if an electric cargo bike is just not in the cards, that is totally fine. There are so many options of either rigging up a bike you have with a motor and a battery or not. I have lots and lots of friends that don't have electric bikes. I personally just knew I needed to start with that or I would never do it because I was not a confident biker at all, even by myself. And so for me, I just knew that wasn't an option, but for lots and lots and lots of people, obviously it is. That's how most people who have a bike have gotten around for 100 years. Um, so you don't have to have one, and you're not gonna. It's not like you're not gonna be cool enough
Yeah.
or whatever. So anything you can do. I think of my sister who had her regular bike and hooked up the trailer and would go everywhere, and it just no, it takes a lot longer, and that's okay. Um, just starting if is the only thing I can really suggest. But really, like used market, they're all over the place if you're patient. Um, and like we have Bikeorum if you're local. There are so many people who would love to meet up and go for rides, just show you routes that are safe because Google Maps has bike routes, but sometimes they're a little crazy. And so it's really nice if you can
Yep.
actually talk to people who bike and say, how do you get from here to here? What are some things you do? I think of my neighbor who just started biking with her daughter when they moved here because we were doing it and it's something to do with friends. And they they didn't know at all how to bike on the road. And so having someone there who can show you is I think really helpful because it can be very intimidating, especially in places like Orem that have terrible infrastructure. It can be very, very intimidating. And so just know wherever you are, if you can find a way to contact a biker, they will probably be very excited. to connect with you and to show you the ropes. And I think that's one of the bigger things is just get plugged into somebody and just start biking, whatever that looks like. I mean, I'm sure you have also there are so many things you can do to rig up your own thing to make things work. You can get a different kinds of trailers, you can get different kinds of extensions for your bike. You can do all these different things to make it work. And obviously there are resources like documentaries and websites. So I don't know if you want to go into those, but my biggest piece of advice is just start. It is
Yeah.
so magical. And uh, I can't recommend enough that people get out there on their bikes. And if you don't want to bike, then walk. Walking is also wonderful. When I was pregnant with my last baby, we I didn't bike as much because I was having some trouble with that. And just getting out there and walking on the sidewalks and seeing people, it's really it's really wonderful. Cars are wonderful too. And I have I have a car and I love my car and I love driving. I'm not at all advocating for people to stop driving ever, but when you can, to take that slow down to be outside. It's very basic and silly, but I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, no,
Just start.
there's the healing power of nature, absolutely, and just in movement. I always say that movement is medicine. If you're moving around and you're outside, it's just kind of that double positive effect. Speaking of documentaries, have you seen the movie Motherload?
I still have not seen it. It's ridiculous. Something always comes up, and I really want to watch it. Isn't there a second one now too?
I don't know if there's a second one. I'll have to look that up. But
I think there might be a follow-up one. And I want to watch them because
I'm telling
you
you,
know.
yeah, Alyssa, you've lived it. Like seriously, your whole story was this mother's story that she put out there. And it's when we watched it, that was one of like the tipping points for us to like that really convinced us of like, okay, we need to do this to just pull the trigger and get a cargo bike. And yeah,
And
like it.
would
Sorry, go
you
ahead.
say the same? Would you say, because I understand, that initial like, oh my gosh, are we actually going to my car costs less.
Yeah,
It's a junky car, but it costs less.
right.
Um, did you feel that same immediate you got it, you went out and thought, "Oh, okay, this is better than I thought."
Oh, for sure. Well, and again, like you said, like the first couple weeks, we're like, okay, like we got to get used to this, like the habit of it. But once we got in a rhythm of it, and Stacy, my wife, will say this all the time. She's like, that purchase, besides buying our house, has been the most life-changing purchase that we've ever had. Like it's completely changed, our culture and just everything that we do, our whole life habits. So absolutely, like just
For
so I love
sure.
that advice that you give of just like if you're thinking about it, if you have the means, just do it. Like you're not gonna regret it.
Yeah. And I would even say that the positive changes far exceed buying a house.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Buying a house is life changing, but the bike is has a much higher ratio of just positive.
for sure. That is very true. That is very true. But and then I think you nailed it too as far as just like keeping it simple. You don't have to go crazy. Just getting started, and then
Yes.
as you kind of build up and you start to see what works and what doesn't work. And honestly, that's kind of the fun part of biking that I realize is like it's like a puzzle. Every time you do it, you're like, okay,
Hmm.
how am I gonna rig this up to make it work? Or, it didn't go so well last time. Like maybe we could try this way, or like, figuring out the right routes. I'm like, oh, that route at that time, not the best thing, but maybe we'll try
Hmm.
this other way. So yeah, I think it's just a good problem solving for your brain. And then again, it's just when you accomplish it, it gives you that sense of pride and just like, yeah, I can do this. So absolutely, so many positive benefits. I love it.
Yeah.
So
It's the best. We need to get someone in here who's going to disagree with us.
yeah, no, for sure. Well,
There
there's some
probably
out
isn't
there.
anyone, right?
Yeah, there's some people out there for sure. But no, I think, overall everyone, and that's a big reason why I'm doing this. Everyone has ridden a bike like as a kid, and you just kind of get in touch with that childlike joy, that you have. And so, as an adult, it's just fun to reconnect with that inner child and just feel the positive benefits from it. So that's why I'm doing it. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, no, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful that you're doing this, and hopefully people can get exposed who hadn't thought about it before, because I had never thought about it. It had never occurred to me that this could be a mode of transportation instead of just something we do for fun. And I think the more people can just be exposed a little bit to, there are different ways to do things.
Yeah,
Um, and the way you're doing isn't necessarily bad, but a shift could feel pretty good.
yeah. There's,
And so
yep.
I think you guys are I think your family is doing a great job of showing up and being part of the community, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. Right back at you. It's super cool to see. Even the families and the kids that aren't involved with the bike bus, like there's the bike racks are full. Like the kids
Mm-hmm.
know they love it. And so I think that there's some positive changes coming. The future hopefully will continue to move forward and roll with this bike movement. So I love it. So
Yeah, it's
Alyssa,
okay that change is slow.
yeah, it'll be a little slow, but you got to just be patient, persistent with it. So, but Alyssa, thanks so much. Again, I appreciate you having this conversation a little bit, but I appreciate it, and we'll continue to ride and see each other on the bike bus and all the other rides that we do. So you're awesome.
Thanks so much. You too.
Okay, all
Appreciate
right.
it.
Yeah, have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye. Great stuff there. Thanks again, Alyssa. Some of the things that I really enjoyed about this conversation is how she saw the joy in her sister and how that joy was something that she wanted to have in her life, right? It wasn't something like, oh, she has that. There's no way I can get that. There's no way I can obtain that. But it's like, no, she has that. And that's something that I want to emulate. I want to have in my life. And she went out and she took control of that. So that was one of the amazing things of this story. Also, just her talking about how biking really helped her kind of come out of that isolation, right? As a young mom, that postpartum depression, that being kind of trapped, not trapped, I don't know if that's the right term to say, but just kind of feeling that stuck. Your sense of identity changes as a mother. So I'm told. I'm not a mother, but that's what I hear from my wife and from other women I talk to and other moms. So that whole idea of biking giving you this new sense of identity, helping you connect with that physical activity and that mental health, it's amazing. And again, I would highly suggest and highly recommend watching the movie Motherload. If you just Google it, it's on YouTube. You can watch it free with ads. So it's amazing. It's life changing. But yeah, so when Alyssa was talking about all those things about how biking has truly helped her care for and connect to her community and given her that confidence to do other things. And, it's literally, it's helping her kind of, direct where she wants to go, pursuing her master's degree, pursuing education, pursuing, wanting to make changes for everyone else. So, great stuff there. Again, I appreciate Alyssa jumping on and being willing and open to share that story. So share it with someone who you might think might benefit from this. I hope that these can motivate you to get out and ride more, and hopefully get out and get a cargo bike and ride with your family a lot more, because like she was saying, just the simple mundane tasks, just kind of getting around here or there, it teaches you to slow down. It teaches you to kind of problem solve and gives you that confidence, gives you those opportunities to grow and to help your mental health overall. So again, thanks everyone for listening. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the shout outs. I appreciate you sharing it with others. We're all going through something hard at times. We all go through difficult situations and different things. So when you're feeling that any day, just jump on that bike and let's ride this out.